What is up, guys? Welcome to the Political Spectrum podcast. This is our second episode. Today we'll be covering the second presidential debate. Our last episode was covering the vice presidential debate. Link to that will be down below if you missed that one. So just a quick introduction. As a Political Spectrum podcast, we try to collect a group of individuals with a wide variety of different political backgrounds and political beliefs and have them share their opinions on current news and relevant topics in the modern day. So I am your token libertarian, Paul. Whoever wants to go next.
I'm Danny, I'm the liberal, and I'm drunk.
I'm the sober token Republican who's battling a cold right now.
Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm the token Trumpist. And, but before we start, I just want to say real quick, to all of the people in the Midwest, pay no attention to these degenerate city dwellers. You are the salt of the earth, and I love you.
And please watch this.
Please like and subscribe. Yes. All right. So
wait. Let me just address that. Let me be clear.
Oh God.
I'm going to insult every region of every country of all walks of life by the time we all go horribly down in our careers because of this.
That's fine. I don't have a career.
God, I wish I.
All right, so I just want to specify that we are shooting this directly after the debate. I think maybe it ended maybe 20 minutes ago. So if Danny's a little drunk, you can imagine why he's drunk.
Yes.
I mean, I think we can all imagine why. So, judging by the debate,
This is how I get through debate.
That's how he gets through debates. So, starting off, again with expectations, what did you guys expect the outcome of the debate to be, and how do you think that was different from what actually happened? I like to start out from that perspective. For me, I was expecting Trump to get creamed after all these allegations came out about what he said with his little rape comments, the tax thing that came out recently, and a whole bunch of other bad things that came out about Trump. So I was expecting him to get harpooned by Hillary on those issues, but I was surprised to see that he kind of bounced back way better than I expected. Do you guys agree?
I guess
Go
I'll go
ahead,
first.
Dan.
I don't know how well I think he bounced back. I think he may have stopped the bleeding. I mean, it's hard to call it a bounce back when you have, 15 senators suddenly pulling endorsements. I think it's 15 total that aren't endorsing him. I don't know if it was all 15
Governors as well.
unendorsed, but you get my point. I think he was able to kind of convince at least his supporters and the ones who were gravitating towards him that he's still viable.
Yeah.
But we're long past the point where Trump's support is enough. Hillary's gained supporters as Johnson's floundered. The undecideds are not undecided as much anymore. The number of people responding has increased. There's not much left to go, so I don't think he bounced back, but I think he stopped the bleeding.
Okay, Charlie, Frank.
I'll let Charlie
Go for it, Frank.
Charlie's opinion on this because I pretty much agree with Dan that he didn't bounce back. He just remained viable. He was able to stop the bleeding, but he didn't show that he's the better choice in this debate. He just showed that he is viable even after all these allegations, and he hasn't really changed anything about him. He's just staying as Trump, and that's what he just showed today, that he's Donald Trump and that you should vote for him, etc.
Well, like Dan, I am also drunk. I am drunk on victory.
Well, I should have started drinking.
Look, my expectations, I'm a natural-born pessimist, and even for me, my expectations were so low. I was expecting essentially the end of the Trump campaign, of course, but it didn't happen. He not only stopped the bleeding, I would argue he did bounce back, and I would argue he stood up and is going to soldier on and keep on fighting, and it is glorious. I mean, what I learned most from this debate is that, well, first off, the man is unstoppable too. Clinton is essentially running as like generic scolding mom. Like half of her stuff, like, oh, this is dark, this is divisive. We should play nice and work well together. And like, okay, Donald, I don't know what you've been drinking. I don't know what's in your water. But it's like, okay, she just came across as amazingly like insincere.
Can I just point out that that's largely because white suburban women are going to be the deciding factor?
Oh, I look, this might be a smart play for her, but it was just so boring to watch her. And it was so.
I'm not
glorious.
undermining your criticism. I'm just trying to contextualize my interpretation.
The soccer mom.
I didn't know why
suburban
suburban
coalition
carry elections. That's interesting. I have to.
It's those soccer moms, those legions of soccer moms. They're going to mobilize and take this country back.
It's
All
if college educated women had broken for Romney at a higher level, he'd be president right now. They were the factor more so than any other because every other demographic fell.
Soccer mom lives matter.
Yeah. Well, hang on. It's because most demographics fall where you'd expect them. The white suburban women, there's a little more flexibility, and that's why in a close election like 2012, it mattered.
Yeah.
I think Clinton's lead is still substantial right now, but if it gets closer, those white suburban women are the firewall at the end of it.
That's why in the debate, Trump didn't change. He just stayed himself, and he was able to minimize the damage. He needs to gain voters, not with his current support. And I don't think he is incentivizing any people to change their minds.
Yeah, I have to disagree there.
Really, go ahead.
He pointed out the flaws in her policy and her attitude. Really, her attitude toward nations and toward the people. And he put forward his own vision. Now, he's not a specific kind of policy wonk guy.
That's his vice.
This drives people.
Yeah, because I would actually agree with you, Charlie. He made a strong condemnation argument against Clinton, but as someone who generally supports Clinton, that's an argument that's baked into the cake. There's not a voter alive that does not know that about Hillary Clinton. There's not a person in this country able to vote that hasn't heard about the negatives. This election's been going on for a year and a half. The primary was fierce. A lot of body blows were landed against her by Bernie Sanders. Just making the negative case against Clinton isn't enough when the negative against Trump is already so substantial.
Yeah,
if this were anyone else, I
think the objective view is that there seems to be extreme negatives on both sides, and I think both candidates are running highly negative campaigns against each other, and maybe that's the right path to go about it. And I think we touched a little bit about this on our last episode, but I think some of the points is that who is getting these attacks in better than the other candidate, and maybe Danny's right, and maybe these attacks on both sides, maybe they're not too relevant because maybe people already have their minds made up. They say, oh, well, Donald Trump, we already expect these bad things to come out of his mouth. Hillary Clinton, we know she's a liar. But where do we go from there then? What else? I mean, they're saying bad stuff about each other, but they're all true, and maybe some people learn something from it. Like, when he brings up things about Hillary, I learned some things, of course. I know that she's already a liar, but it just compounds, just keeps compounding, and maybe eventually some voters will decide that. And when it comes to Trump and his taxes and Trump and his mouth, you kind of get the perspective, well, maybe this is not a guy we want communicating with the other foreign leaders and guy with the nuclear codes. There's always these crazy arguments, but a lot of people can come to these conclusions based on these negative things, and I think in the debate, I think that was shown by both sides.
Well, I mean, for me, now obviously as a Trump supporter, I'm a little biased in this, but the negatives against Clinton and the negatives against Trump, it's interesting to look at them because I think both sides pretty much openly acknowledge, we have some flawed candidates here. But Hillary has done bad things. Trump has said bad things. I mean, he's said mean things, and this kind of goes like my generic, soccer mom 2.0 Clinton. It's like, oh, Donald, you said mean things. That means you have to go in the timeout corner. It's like, look,
Well,
the man is not he's not an orator. He is presenting his vision for a country, and sometimes he does it very, very badly.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes he stumbles over his tongue, and I will fully cede that. Right? There are plenty of times when he has said things where if I was working for his campaign, I would just be backhanding him across the stage, across the face backstage, like, you idiot! But the thing is, a lot of what he has said, like, one, it's either just misconstrued in the worst way possible, actively pushed by the media, or it's just they'll straight up say that he meant things he did not mean. So, for example, with the whole Putin thing, right? Like, oh, he's praised Putin as a strong leader, stronger than Obama. Like, well, he's pointed out pretty rightly that Putin is more effective at pursuing his country's interests than Obama is. That doesn't make him a better person. That doesn't make him a more moral leader. But it does make him a more effective foreign policy leader. And I don't see why Trump would be criticized for that.
Because he's not making an effective argument on the matter. If he made an effective argument on the matter, he might be able to persuade people.
He doesn't.
But exactly, and
I mean,
you're talking about people putting words in his mouth for a negative, but I think you're putting words in his mouth for a positive.
Not at all. I'm telling you, like, I'm putting what he said into context. Like, he said that Putin's
But that's
a strong
the thing.
leader. What does strong mean? Effectiveness.
Frank, what do you think?
Who's going, me?
Yeah.
To what Charlie said, just because yes, he hasn't done anything. He said mean things, but he has said things that he is his best. Like, he is the expert. Like, he's going to follow his advice in foreign affairs. And from watching his campaign, like, you can tell that his advisors can't change his mind, that he doesn't listen to people. And that scares me in realms of, like, foreign affairs where he has no experience. He's the final decision maker, like, in these situations that he's just gonna. I don't believe he's gonna, like, follow the people's advices, and, like, it's just a scary thought from watching it, like, how he leads his campaign. There's, like, you can tell he makes all the decisions. Use of his Twitter, for everything he says, that nobody has control over him.
In the debate, he literally said he hasn't spoken to Mike Pence about the Syria policy,
which they disagreed on, which was, like, unbelievable.
You can have people disagree within your government. That's okay.
That's true, but he said he didn't speak about the Syria policy with his vice president, who just made a claim about their Syria policy at the VP debate less than a week ago.
Well, it is interesting because you look at this candidate who, you're right, he doesn't have a lot of experience, if any, in foreign policy. And yet, he has articulated a realist, rational foreign policy that won't drag us into senseless foreign conflicts, and that will allow us to act in our nation's interest, not in the interest of vague democracy building, but looking at a situation and saying, what is our interest?
I would say that one thing Trump has done well, I think he has pointed out the issues that we've had with our deals, such as NATO and stuff like that. I think that has progressed. Yeah, NAFTA. And I think that's progressed into a conversation in our country about the role of such things. But now I feel like, Hillary's kind of going on that as well. Kind of took what Trump said and now using it as well. So, I mean, it's good that he started some of these conversations, illegal immigration, et cetera, et cetera. Although he didn't really mention illegal immigration too much this debate.
He didn't mention a lot of policy.
Actually, fun fact, he hasn't mentioned the border wall or immigration in either debate.
True.
Good point.
I wonder why
he brought that up. I mean,
yeah,
because
I thought he said he was
like a fourth of the debate saying, Trump, why are you such a terrible person? Like the first 20 minutes were just lost. It makes perfect sense you wouldn't be able to bring up everything.
Fair enough.
I need to do a shot of whiskey. My voice is going. I said advices. I'm losing my mind. But one of the what was curious to me was did he have an opinion on Citizen United? I didn't. Did he respond?
I don't think so.
He didn't really articulate one yet.
He didn't really respond directly to many of the questions.
That's what bothered me about this debate. It just goes into that Clinton's a bad leader, which I agree with. But we have to he needs to present the message that a policy of go into the details, but he doesn't, and he's losing voters because of that. Republicans are as well. It's just
I feel like he had a good opportunity with the Supreme Court justice question. I feel like he didn't take it too much. I feel like he said we need someone that follows the Constitution, but I feel like he should have emphasized more originalist perspective. Of Scalia, I feel like he should have just emphasized more of that. With Hillary, she just said we're going to put someone left leaning on the court. Someone.
Oh, Hillary's answer was good Lord. It's like
you want to go into that, Charlie?
Yeah, Charlie, go ahead.
I am a recovering Cruz supporter, so I like the Constitution.
It's okay. Cruz is a recovering Cruz supporter.
That's fair. How the mighty are. Well, Cruz lost a lot of my goodwill when he refused to endorse Trump for some reason after he pledged to do so. What a slime ball.
I mean, my father was accused of killing John F. Kennedy. I would think about that.
Well, that's because he did it, obviously. Well, look, anyway, this whole thing about the Supreme Court, right? The entire purpose of the Supreme Court is to, well, one, be the highest court in the land for appeal cases, and two, with this idea of judicial review, it's to look at laws and see if they comply with the Constitution. It seems like the Democratic platform is the purpose of the Supreme Court is to justify the laws that we want to pass and to basically find ways to make it work.
Like the living Constitution, basically.
Right, yeah. It's yes, this piece of paper is alive. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, that's true and all, but Trump didn't say that. He doesn't send out a message just
he mentioned Scalia, he mentioned the Constitution. I agree he could have done better.
He doesn't attack her comparison. She doesn't mention the living Constitution. She just says that she's going to appoint judges that are
with life experience.
Yeah, with life experience, whatever the hell that is. I mean, her predecessor.
Who needs a blind justice system?
I mean, Trump should have mentioned that her predecessor, Obama, did not. Kagan had no experience whatsoever. I think she only published one paper, but he doesn't prepare for these debates, and this is why.
Can I actually before because we'll get sidetracked from it. I did want to point out something about Kagan though. Kagan was highly recommended by Scalia.
I mean, that's fine, but she has no experience whatsoever.
I'm just saying. The
I'm not going to agree with Scalia on everything.
The letter of her written document and things can point to are one factor, but I just think it's interesting that of all the people who could have vouched for her behind the scenes, among them was Scalia.
Oh yeah, well, Scalia is not always right.
That's something we can agree on.
Oh boy.
I miss him so much. When
I say that as a joke, but I actually like a lot of Scalia's decisions. Anyway, go on.
No,
the flag burning one.
Criticizing him. When I remember when I woke up and I saw that he died, I was like, "Oh dear God, this is the worst thing." But,
yeah, it was definitely an awful day. All right, so back to the presidential debate.
No, it's irrelevant.
Do you guys remember what the first question was? Because I feel like that escaped my mind a little bit.
The first question
asked
was,
by
the teachers.
The teacher about
yes.
how.
What about the children?
Yeah.
What about the children?
I feel like
listen. This is one I think that gets back to what we sort of talked about in the few things we actually wanted to say about the VP debate when we were talking about the last question about religion. I don't think it's a bad question. I don't know if I think it was a good question for the debate.
What was the question again? So we provide the audience or people who are watching this out of our 3 viewers.
It was basically.
We got 50 last time.
It was basically this campaign, all the mudslinging that happens, every campaign, blah blah blah.
Basically, all the negative campaigning.
Yeah. How do you strive to put a good example forward, or how would you be a good example?
That she thinks that Donald Trump is causing is the reason why bullying is increasing in America. That was hilarious.
Yeah, the Trump effect.
That was a different question.
Different question.
Different question. Okay, maybe I remember that question.
I think that was
this one was the This one was the previous debate could have been rated MA. That's basically what what it was. What would you do about this?
Which I kind of rolled my eyes out. That first debate was
and
rough,
I didn't think
but I don't think there was anything too bad.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah,
bad
I
at all.
agree. I agree. I feel like the first debate wasn't MA, like maybe T, but you are mentioning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, why are children
you are
watching this
mentioning certain
anyway?
things.
Children should find this extremely boring. They should be like playing with anything else. My 4-year-old was watching the debate and was very traumatized. Like, what?
Well,
I think Kids in America talk about that.
I think it depends on how you define child. Like, I think
Sure.
young teen versus 4-year-old.
I mean, the question was.
I mean, for God's sakes, I was 13 when I started following politics.
I'm so sorry.
Me too.
Yeah. Like, I've been following politics since the 08 election was gearing up. So, like,
Yeah.
Good times.
at the time, that person probably would have thought of me as a kid.
I'm
just
Trump's
contextualizing.
What was Trump's answer? Because I know Clinton was talking about going on with the kids.
He basically went right
kind of
into some
ignored it.
attack. Yeah, he basically just went into some attack about how she's a terrible person for president and how he's going to make America great again, and ISIS.
Well, he talked about the inner cities. He talked about Latino voters. Talked about African American. He basically like ignored the question. Just went into like an introduction. I was like, all right. I mean,
I'd like to throw, since you mentioned the inner city thing, I do want to chime in with keeping some pulse to some minority voters who are being very vocal right now, since we don't have that representation here. That issue keeps flaring up.
I identify as a black woman, so.
What'd you say?
Oh man, I wish I remembered the lady who that actually was a thing with last summer, because that would have been a good joke to add there, but I don't, so I'm just going to awkwardly mention it like that. Okay, anyway.
I remember
Anyway, there's this thing when Trump keeps mentioning the inner cities that a lot of minority people, even those I think who are more moderate, keep getting really frustrated because they want to chime in to say, we don't all live in the inner cities. Talk about it in a broader context than inner cities.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting, and this is just sort of an overall thought here. My area isn't really specific policy. I'm kind of more of an idea guy, but it is part of like this. Both the candidates pander hard.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Like Trump's like, oh, I'm going to be great for the blacks and the Latinos, the Hispanics. Like those are the same thing.
What about the Haitians?
And then Hillary's like, oh, well, my first job, I was out defending black children against discrimination and registering Latino voters.
I single-handedly had mentally challenged kids enrolled in schools.
And then I socked George Wallace in the jaw, and that was great.
And then she said, and she said that specifically after the African American man asked the question. She was like one of the only people that like she was like looking dead in the eye, and they showed him like
I
on
want
the
to say
camera.
Clinton's
Like,
better
all
at
right.
pandering.
Oh, that might
I
have
definitely
been
want to say Clinton's definitely better.
that might have been the feed you were watching from. The CNN feed at least. She was looking every questioner in the eye.
Yeah, but I want to say she's definitely better at pandering.
I was watching on Fox.
Can I finish the idea, please?
Yeah, no, sorry. I
It's fine.
I have to toss the stupid little things in because otherwise I'll lose track of them.
I appreciate the flavoring. I mean, it's just part of, I guess you could call it like the mechanization of politics, where we sort of like view the electorate as this device to be tweaked, and like this specific group can go here, we get this percentage can come in here. People are fundamentally unpredictable. So I mean, that's why I really don't put a lot of stock in these sort of scientific models of elections. They can be interesting, they can be useful, but ultimately, a lot of this pandering and like the specific kind of campaign tactics that we all know and hate, it's all based off this idea that we can run society and politics like a mechanism. And so I think we need to keep in mind anything can happen, right? This is inherently unpredictable. Nothing will be known until Election Day.
I actually agree and disagree to an extent. I think there is an unpredictability to it, but I think that's usually when when an unknown factor gets introduced until it has become a known factor. I think this has been going on long enough that if you look at the trends, we're now at the point where it is a known factor. Things that are traditionally predictable are now back to being traditionally predictable. Things that look like they should do this now do this. Things that look like they should do that now do that again. I think at the beginning, Trump was an unknown. I think people who analyzed things didn't know what they were doing. But now I think we know what Trump is and where that support is. And I think you can, at least in this instance, I'm not saying forever we'll have every unknown. More unknowns will surely pop up every time. But I think this is no longer unknown. I think going into this, we can quantify certain things.
I want to jump into.
Oh, go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
I want to jump into some of the specific questions that the moderators had for both candidates that are kind of had them address the bad things that have recently been happening, like with Hillary with WikiLeaks and with Trump, and we'll do Trump and taxes because I think we talked a little bit about the comments that he did already. But with Trump and his taxes, they asked him if he paid any federal taxes. He said yes, he's paid federal taxes. He paid property taxes, et cetera, et cetera. He says that he will release his tax returns before Election Day. I believe that he said that, or after the audits. I think he said before Election Day. But do you believe that he would?
I don't.
I think he said after the audits were done. I don't know if he's
probably what he said. I can't say for certain, but that's what he's been saying for most of the last year and a half.
Or at least the past 6 months, yeah.
I don't know if he can release his tax forms now, even if they're under audit. Somebody has to. I don't know.
He can. Legally speaking, he can. There's nothing about an audit that says you can't release them.
I believe so. I don't know.
Nixon actually released his tax returns because he was under audit as a way of kind of
Thank you for clarifying
the argument. In fact, that's why we have the tradition since Nixon actually. In fact, also here's a fun little tidbit because I think it's sort of important, but more to us because we like the little details, but not too important to average voters. Trump has actually yet to prove he's under audit. The IRS can't confirm or deny because they're not allowed to do that. Trump could provide a simple form that would have been given to him at the beginning of the audit process to prove he's under audit. That has never been provided.
Interesting.
My God.
Charlie, as a Trump supporter, does this bother you that he hasn't released his tax records? Like, you have no idea of his his judgment or anything? I'm just curious.
No, I understand. No, it doesn't bother me.
Huh.
Fair.
I mean, I couldn't say why he's not releasing it because it's like I guess he doesn't want to deal with more political firebombs in his campaign.
I don't know why he would just give up this information so readily. That's actually pretty interesting. Trump has really placed a lot of value on unpredictability, and people have made fun of that, and I get that. But there really is a lot to be said for it. Like what he said tonight in the debate, where it's like, you broadcast like the attack plans. Like, why in God's name would you do that? And then the moderators kind of tried to run interference for Clinton there. Like, but there are reasons. But the point is, I mean,
by the way, just a little sidetrack. Reasons. Radis does not like
reasons.
I just want to reasons. Officer Radis she was really aggressive with Trump. I found it hilarious.
That she was. But it's like this idea of because politics, it is a struggle, right? It really is. It's a non-violent struggle, but it is a clash, and one has to overcome, one has to go under. And in any clash, you don't want to give your opponents anything you don't have to, because you want to win. So if Trump says, I'd rather keep some secrets, I say, well, that's just smart.
That's fair, but I think at this point in the campaign that I think not releasing them has actually hurt him more than if he had released them months ago.
He's calling his opponent like a liar. She has secrets of her own. He's taking the holier than thou stance, but he's he has a lot of skeletons in his closet. He's calling out on hers, so it makes it like a double standard in a way.
I would in no way describe Trump as holier than thou.
But that's the route he's
you make a
taking.
point.
That
You make a fair point.
the
You
better
make a
choice.
fair point. I mean, again, I would just say, again, as a Trump supporter, I'm of course going to say this, but it is difficult for me to see how it's like, especially people on the right, right? Because some of whom are supporting Clinton. If you're on the right,
So
you probably think of this election as being very important. So it's like,
yeah.
it's like, do you really see things like this? If you're on the right, you do think that the Democratic Party has bad policies typically. So if you're on the right and you see this where it's like, oh man, he didn't release his tax returns, or oh man, he said inappropriate things 11 years ago, better give the country to the Democrats. It's over. Pack it up.
I think this is actually a weird convergence of issues between the foreign policy side of the right and the liberal side of the foreign policy on the left, in that a lot of them view Clinton as more conservative than on the left, and that they would like her to be, and on the right, so the more moderate neocons see that as a good thing, and that's created this weird bedfellows where most of the Republicans who have come out the most forcefully against Trump are always the ones most steeped in foreign policy issues. It's why Lindsey Graham was the most vocal senator against Trump for so long, because that man cares more about foreign policy than any other thing he's seen in his life. And
that's certainly true.
And I certainly don't, and he doesn't like Clinton because he's more hawkish than even she is. But that's created this thing where Trump's ties to Russia, potentially through his money, has created this opening on foreign policy. And I think that's where the problem is. I don't think the Republicans who are backing Clinton like Clinton's domestic policy by a wide margin. I think almost all of them, and most of the ones who have been vocal about it, cite it, is foreign policy. Trump's comments play to his temperament. His temperament plays to his decision-making and temperament most substantially for the president are in regards to foreign policy, where every political scientist would have to agree is where the president is most powerful, for better or for worse.
Frank, do you want to comment on that? You're a big foreign policy guy.
Well, I wasn't going to jump on foreign policy because I do agree with Dan on that, but a lot of Republicans aren't. I would say like most of them are hesitant about Trump, not because of he said mean things, because he doesn't have conservative principles. Maternity leave, having a national healthcare system, like he wants everybody to be insured, but he's not how. And it's just in foreign policy as well is scary as well, but just he has no consistent conservative principle. He changes his mind, how he feels. He's trying to expand his tent. So I think that's why a lot of Republicans are afraid of a Trump presidency, but as well as foreign policy, as Dan mentioned.
Yep, I just meant the most vocal proponent of that. Obviously, the block of voters is very complicated, but I think that's the key to where you're seeing that.
Yeah. Frank, I'd love to engage you on this actually, because I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this last night. There seems to be this weird disconnect within the quote-unquote conservative movement between principle and policy.
Go ahead.
Those are two separate things.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, maternity leave, or lack thereof, is not a principle. That's a policy.
But how are you going to fund it? That's the principle. Are you going to raise taxes? Or, it goes in and comes back.
That's actually policy, too. A principle is something that's not really principles are more vague usually. Like you would say, okay, we believe in
less
the
government
rights of the
intervention.
individual. We believe in the rights of the individual, therefore we believe in smaller government, and therefore the policies spring from that.
But how can you have smaller government when you're maternity leave and raising that?
I'm not advocating smaller government.
But that's what. Okay, yeah, but that's what conservative principles are for smaller government. Last time I checked.
Well, that's classical liberalism. That's not really a right-wing idea.
Really?
That's a classical liberal idea.
You wouldn't say that's part of the modern day conservatism?
Oh, it's part of modern day conservatism, but modern day conservatism is yesteryear's leftism.
Wow, I think so. National Review is
National Review is center right. I would put them in the. I mean, they're to my left, but honestly, I would say the real division here is not between conservatives and leftists or liberals. It's between nationalists and globalists. It's between people who care about the country and its people, and between people who care about rather vague economic statistics that don't actually help anybody. Not to be disrespectful.
So it's the Trump supporters versus globalists who are Democrats and Republicans. Well, traditionally conservative, well, classical liberals, we'll go with that.
I mean, I have nothing against classical liberalism. I actually admire a lot of its principles. I used to consider myself one. I'm also a recovering libertarian, so I used to identify quite strongly with that.
But you're saying that no, it's very interesting. You're saying that small government isn't a core principle of the Republican Party.
I think it was under Reagan. I think
Really?
that since Goldwater, really, since Goldwater, that has become a sort of a.
So all the Republicans,
consistently,
like the Tea Party, and all the Republicans, campaigning for small government, are a bunch of liars, or a bunch of
No, they're not. When did I say they were liars?
I mean, but they're petitioning for something that they don't really support. Like, it's not a principle.
No, I'm saying I think that they are mislabeling themselves.
That's an interesting. I have to disagree, but
that's fine. I have no ill will against these people.
I mean, you do have to point out that under all Republican presidents and Republican leaders of Congress, et cetera, government has still grown over time.
No, exactly.
I want to move towards, because we mentioned it before when we were talking about the taxes, and we kind of edged out about the WikiLeaks thing that the moderators brought up.
Actually, can I chime in with one side note before we jump back into the details of the debate?
Sure.
YouGov just posted the results of their scientific response snap poll. According to it, Clinton narrowly wins with undecideds 44 to 41%. I'm not going with the full poll because I think that's the more important number. So I think we can call this debate mostly a wash in terms of big swings. No, I think a wash for both, because I think, like I said before, stopping the bleeding isn't enough for Trump.
Yeah,
and this isn't a knockout blow for Clinton, and it's not an overstated win for Trump. So I think what we were saying before kind of looks, if this holds with more polls that come out, I think we're still roughly where we were before tonight.
All right,
I
so
just wanted
back to the
WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks.
That just got
okay. But back to the WikiLeaks. Did they discuss Clinton's the open borders and backroom deals?
God!
They didn't discuss that specific comment. They were mostly commenting on the public versus private opinion.
Oh yeah.
comment.
That I remember. Yeah, because I remember I was.
Her explanation of it was unsatisfactory, in my opinion, talking about somehow digressing into Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, she said that she's following Lincoln's footsteps. All right.
That's what that comment was about, and let me edge away from that topic. And then she.
Are you a Steven Spielberg fan, fellow kids?
Also, that movie is inaccurate as well.
Did you like the movie?
It was so good, yo.
All right. As the person on her side, I'd like to condemn and defend the response at the same time.
Oh, paradox. Go ahead.
You cut out a little bit. Can you just repeat that?
I was saying allow me to condemn and criticize the response at the defend and condemn at the same time.
Fair enough.
Go forth, young man.
Yeah, it was an unsatisfactory way of articulating it in terms of phrasing it as Lincoln. Obviously, in the context of the speech, he wasn't referring to the movie. I don't buy that very much at all.
My life, Dan.
Fair enough. But
the best movie ever, though.
I actually very much enjoyed the movie for what it is. I don't.
Oh man.
Hang on. Let me point out. It's a movie.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We can trust me. I love movies and discussing their themes. we can have an entire podcast devoted to that at some point when this election is over and we have nothing to do with our lives. But
there'll still be plenty to do, believe me.
no, I know. But what I
The
wanted to
struggle
say,
never ends.
what I wanted to say about it though is, I think what she was doing was more of a rhetorical tactic to articulate a point that is not easy to convey to an average voter. That yes, sometimes you say things in public that don't mesh with what you're saying in private, all for the sake of getting to your end goal. It's a really icky thing to say because the public takes that as, oh, you're lying to us. But sometimes it's more of no.
That's how we see it.
Hang on. Let me finish. But let's face it.
I get the point you're making, though.
Deals have to be made. That's like you're not going to win every battle.
There was a candidate who had written a book about making deals.
Yeah, Tony Schwartz should run for president.
Oh, jeez. Anyway, I do think that that Trump's response to her WikiLeaks thing was pretty funny with his mentioning of Honest Abe, and I think the crowd got a good reaction from that too.
My favorite. He said, correct me if I'm wrong. He did say that Lincoln never told a lie, right?
Yeah, he said that.
Well,
my favorite comment on Twitter about that had to be, "That was Washington, you fucking idiot."
Dan, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln are the same person.
Well,
That's why he grew the beard and wore the hat.
Yeah.
hashtag Make America.
Make America Lincoln again.
Just make America.
The Make America hat with the Washington.
13, so I'm not going to say my other famous line, but yeah.
Oh, the best line by far was, "You'd be in jail."
No, I like what he
Yeah, that was good too.
He basically said, "When I become president, I'm gonna put you in jail."
Yeah!
But that's his personality.
Well, Donald.
I don't know. Listen, I don't know.
Security.
Hang on, you guys are forgetting. You guys are forgetting when he promised to give us all economics.
I must have.
That I think was the best line.
Economics? I would love some economics.
No. Yeah, I know. I just ran out of economics last week. No one could make change for economics
Crazy economics
for me.
We don't have economics instead. We just have heroin.
My PPP is way down.
Yeah,
no,
would you guys think moderators? Were they?
They could have been worse.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job for the most part. I think even if you like what Trump was saying, he wasn't answering the questions, and that resulted in him getting more pushback to answer the questions.
Yeah.
As for timing, they did a pretty solid job. Trump actually walked away with a slight edge from what I was seeing in the summary. I think I can actually find the percentage if you give me a second to scroll.
Yeah, I thought they actually both did.
Oh, got it.
I thought they both did a good job.
Got it.
No complaints here.
40 minutes, 10 seconds for Trump, 39 and 5 seconds for Clinton.
Okay, that's pretty good, actually.
Yeah, so I think they did a solid job. I actually really thought they asked substantive questions. I was a little annoyed that this is supposed to be the town hall, though.
Yeah.
I will say, can I actually throw out a theory about that?
God.
I love theories.
I think they decided to change gears and to have more hands-on when the stories broke over the weekend. I think they realized, oh shit, this is going to be messy, especially given the lead into tonight. I think they took more charge to try to steer it from getting too bad.
I think they asked those questions specifically because they knew that's what voters wanted to hear about, honestly.
Yeah.
And obviously, and them bringing it up on their own, it would be they would not stop bringing it up if they didn't bring it up in a question.
Well, I don't even mean just the questions. I don't even mean just the questions. I mean the way they kept control over the debate from devolving into a total mess.
Devolving into a what?
Into a total mess. It didn't devolve into a screaming match like some feared it might.
I wish it had. That would have been great.
I mean, like money's on Trump, like winning in a hard, like a 1v1 fight, just like tossing it. But how many people ask questions? I think it was like 6 or 7. I asked.
That sounds about right.
Pretty
Maybe
small
8
amount.
total.
I remember there was a
I'm
lot
trying to-
more with Romney and Obama, so I was actually surprised. But
Again,
overall,
that's-
I thought better than the first debate, which doesn't say much. I'm just curious of how Trump's gonna try to do after this, or like what's he gonna do? Like, how is he gonna gain
March
voters?
on to victory, Frank. Obviously.
There's
I
actually
just want to know how.
There's actually an interesting take I saw that I think I want to get your opinions on. There was a take I was seeing that a good-ish debate for Trump like this one may actually have a negative effect in the home stretch because of the talk about the videos that are yet to be released. I don't know if you guys were seeing, but there's already there's reports of numerous videos that were filmed during the filming of The Apprentice that are under lock and key that are potentially going to get leaked.
Oh well.
Including one, at least one. I don't think they ever really specified there was only one, but there is video of him using the N-word.
I mean, he's not going to harm his African American vote. I mean,
No, but moderate white voters
Moderate
don't
Republicans
like
are gonna
the idea of voting for a candidate they perceive as racist. It's the Goldwater effect.
yeah.
Or Goldwater.
Charlie, what's your take on that? Like, do you think Trump has I mean, it's going to be all right.
Again, I'm a natural-born pessimist, but here, hope springs eternal. The thing is, every single week, pretty much, they've said, "Oh, well, this is the last week of Trump's campaign. He's done.
That
The
is true.
Republicans are going to abandon him. He's fallen through. He's reached his peak." And he keeps going. The man is a madman. He cannot be stopped. He's going all the
Until
way.
November 8th.
Yeah, until November.
So this
8th.
is just a bump in the road then.
Of course
I mean,
it is.
I mean, there is some truth to that. I think
Yeah.
but I think there's that's because of the media. Or I don't like saying the media. I think it's a more of a side effect of media figures over desire to have decisive moments. I think the media, because of the way they look at the history of politics, they think, oh, you can call the moment when it happens. No one ever calls the moment when it happens. Everyone calls the moment after it happened. Everyone
exactly.
no one called any moment in a political campaign as the decisive moment until they sat down and thought about it at the end of the campaign. I think they are overly desiring that to happen in real time, and that's led to them trying to call these things. But if you look at the ceiling for Trump's support, Trump has kept his support ravenously. I mean, that is a base that does not bend. I don't deny that.
It's like what Trump said of Hillary Clinton. They don't stop. They won't quit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I joked about that's the one thing no one can ever lie about, because no matter what you think about Hillary Clinton, that woman will never stop.
Must have Trump's the state.
Anyway.
God help us.
Exactly. But what I was going to say is
Heroes never die for a price.
Trump support.
I feel like Trump supports will keep on going after November 8th as well. Like, we'll see Charlie, like, hashtag impeach.
Well, that's always an interesting element. I think either candidate's going to walk into the White House with a lot of opposition, as president. But besides the point, Trump never expands past his ceiling.
That's true. Very true. Which is like the reason why he's probably going to lose, unless.
The only time the polling ever gets close is because Clinton loses support when things go bad. Unless a sustained thing happens, I don't see that changing in the next 30 days.
Charlie, what do you think?
Well, I think it really does come down to this. Dan, you're right. Clinton. When the race gets closer, it's from Clinton losing support, and Trump might make slight gains, but overall, it's Clinton losing people. And I see no reason why that wouldn't keep happening, because we are dealing with a candidate who has openly professed her utopian vision for this one world hemisphere with no borders and open trade and open movement, and essentially,
Woo, global trade.
God. Hooray for globalism! Who needs?
Oh yeah, no, Charlie, I get what you're saying. There's nothing stopping another downward slope for Clinton. The only reason I think that's no longer what you can count on is the trend is Clinton goes up and then she slides down. 30 days if you follow the previous trends, because it's been a sine wave trend that you can like really weirdly symbolic in a way. I don't see it slipping enough, considering it's still on the upward trend.
Danny, I don't trust
okay,
him.
Charlie?
I don't know, because we see what happened with the FARC deal and Brexit. So I mean, third time.
Hang on, I feel hang on. I have to.
Hold on, Danny. Let someone else talk.
Sorry.
I feel like there's a lot of people who don't identify as Trump supporters, who may come out. Like, there's a lot of factors and variables that can happen. So I wouldn't say it's like impossible for Trump to win in 30 days. There's a possibility. I don't know how strong it is, but there is a chance.
I mean, I actually, going off of that, yeah, it's very similar to what happened with Brexit. Going into the Brexit vote, I anticipated about a 52-48 win for Remain. I think that's what a lot of people anticipated. In reality, the opposite happened. There's really no reason the same can't happen here.
Yeah, I totally agree there.
Well, actually, this is what I wanted to chime in on. I'm not saying if the polls were closer, I'd buy that as a viable argument. The reason that becomes less viable when the polls are this decisive is the polls leading up to Brexit were muddled. They were close, and even the ones that had stay winning were close.
Yeah.
And if you look at them, Brexit was really hanging on and consistently winning in a lot of polls. That's not the case right now. It's not, Trump isn't winning. Every poll that's come out since the first debate has Clinton up and continuing up.
That's actually not true.
It is.
No, the LA Times is putting out polls that have him ahead.
LA Times is a complicated poll because LA Times is polling the same voters every day as events change. Pollsters think it's interesting and there's some merit to it, but the LA Times poll is not a good poll to look on its own. You have to look at them all because
538 rates it pretty highly.
Well, again, because they think it's interesting. They don't. I listen to Nate Silver's podcasts and they talk a lot about the LA Times poll.
Why am I not surprised?
Yes, because basically what they say is Nate Silver doesn't like the people who outright dismiss it because of it says nice things about Trump. But one thing you have to account for when making consensus out of all the data is you have to look at the trends of the poll, not just what the specific numbers are. And part of it is Trump's support in even the LA Times poll tends to wane when he's doing poorly.
And now he's doing well. The debate went very well for him.
I mean, there's 30 days is still enough time to tip. I feel like it is still enough time with the WikiLeaks. I don't know if there's any more leaks coming out. If there's another major terrorist attack, it could tilt it towards Trump. There's a lot of factors that can in a way provide a chance.
30 days is a political eternity.
Yeah,
it's
also true.
It's always possible. Yeah. I don't deny that. But what I'm simply talking about with the Brexit comparison is the data is more reliable than a lot of people are trying to claim it is, using Brexit as an example. Brexit, sure. And also one thing a lot of other pollsters, including Nate Silver, have talked about. I can't ever remember the names of one of the other podcasts I listen to, so that's why I keep using him. With the UK, the polling is also not as consistently great as the US polling has been on average.
I do have one point I want to mention about polling in the US, and that has been relatively low. There's been a lot of reports saying that there's not a lot of young people represented in those polls, and I feel like the majority of them would probably lean more towards Hillary than for Trump. So I think, and I made this point before, not on the show, but I made this point to one of you three, or maybe all three of you at some point. So do you think that Hillary support might actually be more than it's reported?
Actually, I can actually add, even on top of your young people not being as well represented, there's an interesting theory, and again, it's more of a few pollsters are throwing it out there to counter the shot. They like to refer to it as people referring to the shy Trump voter, the Trump voters that don't respond when asked, despite the fact that they are consistently among the most enthusiastic to respond.
Well, the bases, yeah.
Yeah, but again,
there are also others who are going to consider to vote for Trump, but they don't want to admit to it. That's also possible. I mean, they exist.
That's what a lot of people point to as being the possible shy Trump voter, the ones who are going to come out and vote despite what they've said. But the counter that people point out to that is the shy Hillary voter potential, wives of consistent Republicans who cannot vote for Trump.
True.
So basically, one guy.
I mean, there's also you have the third party effect. It made third parties maybe affect them a little bit more because of the millennial or young people being counted.
Woo, go Gary!
So Joel Stein, Wi-Fi kills, but
hashtag Wi-Fi lives matter. All right.
Thank God I'm plugged into an Ethernet cable here.
I want to mention the. I think we've been going on for almost an hour. I want to mention the last question, which I thought I thought it was a good change. I'm not sure if it was. I don't know. Well, let me know what you guys think. The last question in regards to one of the regular people asked. They're like, say something good about each other or whatever. Did you guys like that question?
It was amusing, but
I liked it. Go ahead, Charlie.
I didn't care for it. I didn't care for it personally, but I wasn't against it either. I have no real opinion on it. I just kind of rolled my eyes and kept watching.
I guess it was like their effort to try to reconcile the nation and the debate.
It felt more like something on a TV show.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like it was
like good ending,
like a movie.
Yeah.
Like Lincoln.
It was. I thought it was good, but it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't substantive, but maybe it was good. Maybe it was good for like the average voter who's seeing all the big divide.
Like they're seeing like, oh my God, what are we doing?
We're making America great again.
Oh God.
What do you mean? What are we doing? Come on.
I'm building a wall.
We're building that glorious.
Yeah,
wall.
listen. I RSVP'd for the inauguration of the wall. Remember it on Facebook. I have to admit, I'm a little guilty.
Awesome.
I'll see you there, Charlie. But
right.
I think it was cheesy.
I'll bring the champagne.
Okay, so.
Okay.
Is there any other? Is there any other last-minute points or specific parts of the debate that you guys thought were, that really spoke out to you, or you thought made a big impact, or might make a big impact?
There wasn't one I thought. One I saw, one that stands out to me, but it's not going to make a big impact because it's not going to change the opinions of who's already breaking which way. But I thought Trump's answer to the Islamophobia question was downright terrible. Like among the worst answers I've ever heard in politics.
Huh.
It was.
Yeah, I didn't think he reacted to it well.
It was, I'm a Muslim, and I want to know how you'll deal with, after this election, the rise of Islamophobia in this country. Trump responds with, San Bernardino and Paris and 9/11. And it's like, dude, no. It's like, I get it. There is a problem. I get it. You want to call it what it is, blah, blah, blah. I get that you're going to answer like that. I've seen that dance from Republicans before. But you're supposed to at least talk about it in the context of the average voter. You're not supposed to talk about it in the context
I'm not
of
gonna say
Muslims
The
have done
average voter,
terrible.
I mean,
How is like one person responsible for stemming Islamophobia? Like that's it's.
Listen,
when I was in-
yeah,
I'm no. It's
you,
a
dear
broad.
leader.
yeah, I mean like it's you're giving like credit.
Honestly, hang on.
To the president.
I would point to George W. Bush in his 9/11 speech. Islam is not our enemy. I don't. Well, and listen, I don't point to George W. Bush as a good example for too many things, but that is
Neither
one
do
of
I.
them where at least, yeah, fair enough. But that is one where I think at least he set the example.
It was a good speech.
Obviously, no one. Oh, it's one of the best speeches.
I mean,
it's
but,
one of the
you
few.
know,
It's one of the
like-
few good ones Bush ever gave.
But
How dare you? He
have
was
to
so
look at,
articulate.
like what did Obama do to stop Islamophobia? Like why is it by asking
Very
what can he do? You have to blame his predecessor. Like
What?
it's very interesting.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. Obviously, it's more complicated than the president fixes it. But I think in the context, of for
The question.
Yeah.
for the question of a Muslim voter who wants to know how will you at least deal with it, not fix it, not
Charlie-
solve it, not make it go away, but how will
Char-
you address the issue?
Charlie, how do you think Trump
Yeah, Charlie,
responded
go
to that?
I mean, honestly, it's the question itself. For me, it's one of those questions, kind of like at the first Republican debate when the first question, like, who here will back the nominee? Like, raise your hand if you won't. You know, there's trying to say, oh, here's Trump's thing. Let's get on him about that.
Isn't that
Honestly,
funny how Trump was the only one who didn't say it, and now the rest of them got screwed?
that was so bad. Have you guys watched these You Can't Stop the Trump videos on YouTube?
No, I'm gonna watch them later now.
They're so good.
Yeah, stop.
And like they all feature that one scene where he raises his hand, the only guy on stage. It's amazing. Regarding how he answered that, look, again, this is my old libertarian self rearing its ugly head, but I don't think it's the job of the president to like set the direction for society.
There you go.
It's not the president's job to be your father and like stroke your hair and soothe your fears.
And honestly, that would have been a decent answer from him.
Yeah,
it would have been.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping
Because at least he would.
honestly.
Because here's the thing: I'm not saying the president has to have the solution to Islamophobia or racism, but when a voter asks you what you're going to do to address it, you have to address the question because
In a way, he did.
Not really.
Bear with me here. Now.
Hang on. I just mean in the context of from the perspective of that voter and the voters who think like her. From the perspective of a minority voter and like a Muslim dealing with Islamophobia, that question did not appease them. It didn't make an effort to argue that it's not something that the president can fix. He argued that he basically meandered about there's terrorism and Muslims sometimes commit terrorism.
And Hillary doesn't mention
I'm talking about
radical Islamic terrorism. That's basically the point
that was
he
part of it.
making.
What I'm saying, what I mean, the reason that I didn't like that answer, and I think that answer stands out as among the worst, aside from his forcing his way to detract from his comments in the video.
I think the Iraq War with Sean Hannity holds the gold standard as the worst.
Oh, yes.
I'll disagree there.
Talk to Sean Hannity. I talked to him 13 years ago, off the record. Ask him.
Absolutely.
The first debate will always be the gold standard for bad answers, but I mean, in this debate, that one.
Wrong.
Yeah. Okay. You go. I kind of hit everything.
It's not the worst. All right. Anyway.
The reason that they're.
Sorry.
I mean, honestly, I don't see a big Islamophobia problem in America. It's around, and it's a bad thing. I agree.
Yeah.
But the reason that there is what there is of it is because in the popular imagination, these terrorist acts are linked with Islam. And the fact that the Democratic Party keeps denying that is a problem. But the best way to stop Islamophobia is to stop terrorist attacks. And I mean, Trump, and in his answer, Trump said, like, look, the Muslim community needs to help us. They need to point out these people in their midst who are planning these things. He's touching that in his answer. So the best way to stop Islamophobia, stop the attacks. The fear stops if there's no reasonable fear.
My problem with that, and this is my problem with the answer, and I don't want to dive too much into the issue itself because that's a whole debate onto itself. In the context of his answer, most attacks that get stopped ahead of time, and most people who get stopped before they ever get anywhere near that, are reported by Muslims.
That's great, and they need to publicize that more. Be shouting that from the roof.
And I agree, the Democratic Party doesn't do the best job as a whole in articulating that side of the argument. Believe me, I have my issues with how the whole deals with it. I think a lot of them don't do a good job in balancing the aspects of it for the sake of the party. Some do, some don't. What my issue is with Trump's answer is it gets to the core of an issue when it comes to how Muslims in this country have to deal with our politics. Everyone is subject to the unfortunate reality that individual feelings will end up sometimes having a negative impact on their lives.
Sure.
But when Trump perpetuates a lot of falsehoods like that, implies that Muslims aren't doing enough to stop terrorist attacks, when most cases, again, are largely because of the work they do, it implies a certain level of not agreement, but it implies that Muslims, even if they aren't committing them themselves, implicitly support them by not stopping them. And I think it's a dangerous way in how his rhetoric is specifically handled. And again, I'm not saying the president or any one person will make or break Islamophobia. I think Islamophobia is a thing in this country that's not going away.
Of course, it can never go away.
And I don't think it's something that's. I mean, I do think it can be spread. Phobias like that are very easy to spread if you hammer away at it with fearful tactics long enough. But I just think that answer hits at the heart of just one dynamic of why I think Trump in particular is out of touch with the cultural aspects of the leadership.
Charlie, do you want to respond to what Danny said, and then we'll move on to the end?
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I mean, here's the thing about this Islamophobia thing, what Trump's doing. Trump has moderated his stance. He started off with this sort of knee-jerk reaction, a ban on Muslim entry into the country. And he's moved his stance. He's gone toward the middle. He's actually adopted Cruz's old stance. It's like, look, we look at the countries where this is happening, and we say, okay, maybe you shouldn't be coming in from this country. And I don't think that's an unreasonable stance. I don't think that's a hateful stance. I don't think that's a horribly divisive stance. It's about the community. It's about the security of the whole of the country.
Yeah, I think I agree with that point. He also said that it's not just banning people from specific areas. He says extreme vetting, which I think
extreme vetting. Yes.
Which we don't know what it is.
We don't know what it is, but
Trump will let us know as soon as he figures it out.
Yeah, he's figured it out as he goes.
Well, we have seen what that could be done, honestly. You can look at the case study here with what's happening in Europe. They are doing it the exact opposite way.
Yes.
Basically, Merkel said, anyone who can get here, come on down.
And which is why they're having problems with Merkel's popularity is going down the shitter.
And then Great Britain leaves.
Germany, which is why Germany, a country that I love, is descending into a hellhole. But
Deutschland.
Can I actually try to make a distinction between what you're saying and what I was getting at with Trump? I'm not.
Can I wrap up real quick?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. My mistake.
That's okay. No, I'm just wrapping up. And so I think it's really quite simple. You can verify where people are from. Like, they haven't been checking documentation for these migrants, for example. You can check that. You can interview these people. You can interrogate them. You can try and figure out who they are, where they come from. And
even Hillary. And even Hillary has said that if they don't have information on these specific people, that they won't let them in. She said that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, she did say that.
That was a good point. I approved of
But
that.
this is where I was getting at though with Trump. What you guys are making is an intelligent argument about the specifics of the vetting process. But I would counter with the vetting process for Syrian refugees is an 18-month process to over 2-year process to get into the United States.
Needs to be 28 months, Danny.
It is the single most rigorous vetting process for refugees in the world.
Good.
We do not let that many in as it is because of that. And I say that there's issues with that in how it's handled. I think there's a lot of red tape in it that I think is unnecessary, but that's the specific policy to be argued. My issue with what you guys are saying versus what Trump is saying is you can argue how the vetting is handled, but he does, and this is where the rhetoric is important. If you argue the policy of vetting in an intelligent way, like even Cruz would, like I did not like Cruz, I do not like Cruz, but Cruz understands. Yeah, I know we disagree, obviously, but here's the thing: Cruz has versus Donald Trump. Cruz understands the power of rhetoric. Cruz understands how to talk about things in a way where he's not outright demonizing, with a few exceptions, I would argue. Trump doesn't have that nuance. It's why his original policy was complete and utter ban of Muslims. It's that lack of nuance that I have the problem with, not the I have issues with refugees thing. I personally have issues with the policy, but I don't have issues with the argument. I have issues, though, with where Trump started and how it's devolved.
Well, we've come to a point in this country where we are at this juncture where the principle of nationhood actually needs to be asserted. And that speaks ill. But the thing is, that's why I like Trump's rhetoric. He is aggressively and consistently proposing, we are a nation. We are a unique people with a unique history, and we are different from other countries, and every country is different and should look after itself. So that I'm willing to forgive a lot of these sort of specific policy faux pas because he is advancing something greater. He is advancing the principle of particularity and the principle of preference, the principle of group belonging, which is something that we're severely lacking. Like we have Hillary saying, like, oh, we're stronger together. But it's just such an empty catchphrase when you deride 25% of the country as this basket of deplorables. So I agree that Trump and I disagree on some specific policy issues, but I am willing to forgive a lot of that gladly because he is pushing something very big and very important. And once we reassert this principle of nationhood, we can tweak the policy options. But for now, we have to rescue the concept of nations.
And that's an interesting point.
On that, I just put my headphones in. I hope it wasn't.
It's certainly one of the more articulate defenses of Trump I've heard.
Yeah, but not by Donald Trump. That's the problem.
Oh, that
I love you too, Dan.
or his surrogates.
Or surrogates, for that matter. I guess we'll go with the whole nation-state argument in the next video. I have some questions about that.
I love that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Another chime in with. Another chime in with a scientific poll. CNN's scientific poll with ORC. Clinton 57%, Trump 34%. Take that what you will.
Excuse me. Oh, sorry. I'm just so bored, Dan. Oh.
I'm not.
What was that? What was that again? Cut out for me.
The Clinton. The CNN ORC poll has Clinton 57, Trump 34. It's another ORC is scientific and fairly reputable. Again, I'm only adding these for the context of. Take them for what you will.
Let's give it a day or two, and we'll kind of do a post.
Oh no, I think I said it before we actually gone on, but I do think the day after and the days after are more important than just the night of.
Yeah.
Because
I definitely agree.
The example I used was Al Gore's issues were compounded after the fact, not the night of. This very well could go even worse for Trump based on those numbers, or it could go better. We don't know. I'm simply sharing them because this is what we're seeing right now, and I think it's important to share them.
That's certainly true, and they both had good moments in the debate. They both had their bad moments, and I think we addressed them pretty well in this discussion.
But back to the vetting. Back to the vetting process. It does need to be strengthened because I think Comey said there are gaps, there are problems, and I think the number that Clinton wants to have simulated to the country, I don't know if there's a time frame that she put into it, but there needs to be an oversight of the system because there are gaps. So I don't know what Trump plans to do, but I would hope there'd be strengthening. We'll see.
I think that's a good place to stop.
Yeah, I hope it would be strengthened too. Because as a libertarian, I do believe immigration. I do believe immigration.
Sorry, Paul.
You haven't talked at all either, Frank. So I think immigration. I think immigration is a very important part of stability of a country. I think having new people come in is always good, but from certain areas, I do believe in vetting very highly, and I think I don't know about. I don't speak for libertarians. I'm gonna have all the libertarians attack me.
What's Aleppo?
Yeah, what is Aleppo? Hashtag Johnson's not a real libertarian, although I am voting for him.
I do want to add a fun fact that was shared during the debate. Google searches for Aleppo, 2 separate words were up when it was mentioned in the debate.
Oh man, I love this country, man.
People were curious what Leppos were.
All right, so I think. Yeah, what is pussy?
All right, conclude there. I think we should
we should end it there. So again, if you guys like,
my family's gonna watch this.
Cut off the last minute.
Yeah, listen, it's just locker room podcasting.
Yeah, that's true. It's locker room talk.
It's just locker room talk, guys.
Hang on, before we sign off though, do we want to talk about what we think going into the time up until what do we think the results of this are going to be going into the time before the next debate? Do we think?
Gonna have it's gonna be the same as the first debate. Maybe a little positive changes towards Trump, but that's gonna be it.
Yeah, I think things are going. I don't think things will change that much. I think it'll be relatively negligible. I think by this time next week, people won't really be talking about the debate. They'll be talking about other things. And with the lead up to the next debate anyway, which is when is that 10 days, 2 weeks? When is
Not sure. I know it's hosted by Chris Wallace, so that should be interesting.
10 days. Yeah, that's what I'm talking.
Wednesday the 19th.
Okay, so the 19th.
Yep.
Okay, so Danny, what do you think?
I'm a little torn. I feel like Trump stopped the bleeding, but now that some of these polls are coming in, I'm curious. I'm curious what the actual result's going to be because I actually did. I don't know if I mentioned it when I mentioned the YouGov poll about undecideds. Women in the poll significantly broke for Clinton in her favor, and compound that with the issue Trump's having with his sexual assault comments, and potentially any more stories. Listen, the comments. I'm not saying he necessarily committed sexual assault, but the comments he describe a sexual assault. Whether it's a real thing that happened is another thing to be litigated. But the comments constitute sexual assault.
But look, the guy he was making really crappy banter. It wasn't even good banter. It was really kind of try hard banter. Do you know?
Banter again. Banter that constitutes the action. I'm not here to relitigate. I'm not here to relitigate that. We discussed it a little more last time. I'm just saying, especially for women, I said it before the podcast, but so I'll say it again here. My little sister was watching, and she doesn't follow politics. But when Trump was trying to defend his comments as locker room talk, she was disgusted. And she's 18. She's voting this year.
That makes perfect sense.
So I'm just saying,
the only defense for it is like, well, it's guy talk, but no, but women don't really care about that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just kind of there's
Yeah,
really
so
no
what
way
I'm-
you can do it.
They should care about
Yeah.
the
So
kitchen.
basically, what I'm curious at the end result of this is, if men think Trump won, I don't, and that's how he wins overall. I don't think that helps him. I think men overwhelmingly break for him with white men. There's not a lot of room for him to go up in. Clinton has a lot more room to work with undecided, educated women, and if these polls are on the pulse with that segment of the population, compounded with that story that broke, compounded with any potential additional stuff that comes forward, I'm thinking we're roughly where we were before tonight. I don't think tonight made a big difference. I think if Trump is going to pull this out, if there is a version of this situation where Trump becomes the president, it all
It's called
comes
the
down.
truth, Dan.
It all comes
I mean-
down. It all comes down to him forcing
And
his
we'll
way
be covering.
through this and doing a phenomenal performance in the third debate. I think if he can somehow come into the third debate and hit a home run,
Yeah, we'll be
that may be
covering
enough.
the third debate as well, along with we'll probably do some news stuff next week as well. So there's going to be a lot more stuff to analyze because there's always new things coming out. Like Danny said, the apprentice stuff is going to come out soon. More WikiLeaks from Hillary is going to come out. So it's going to be a lot more. Going to be a lot more things to look at. I think that's exciting, and I think it's going to be more stuff for the four of us maybe to talk about. But I do want to end it there.
Okay.
All right,
So,
dictator.
because I mean, we've been going for a long time. So,
Because the people want to hear us, Paul.
There's a lot of shit to
Vox
cover.
Populi, Vox Dei, Paul.
Vox Populi.
I mean, I think we ended the debate talk mostly though. So
Yeah, we have.
if you guys liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe down below. This has been the Political Spectrum Podcast. We will be doing another video very shortly on the aftermath of the debate, along with any relevant news stories, like we said before. So thank you guys for watching. Until next time, peace.
Bye.
Hi.